All right, welcome to our Week 9 preview with Biscuits and SEC. The Hammer is sitting in today, flying solo for the Biscuits and SEC guys. We're going to talk about the Week 8 preview. No, I did not misspell that. The last week was so soft. It was a very weak week. This week, only 4 games to preview, but one of them is the cocktail party. How you doing, Hank?
Doing great, Steven. Thanks for having us as always. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing quite well. Just looking forward to some football. This is absolutely my favorite time of the year. Right now, it is getting down to where highs are in the mid 80s, so it's just lovely fall weather.
Yeah, we got a little bit of the early fall at the beginning of October here in Texas, and then this past weekend, I went to the A&M South Carolina game, and I think it at least hit 90. It was pretty hot. Luckily, it was a night game, but it didn't feel like late October Saturday when I was tailgating.
Yeah, the good thing about down here is it might get up into the mid 80s, but the lows are getting down in the mid 60s. So it's pretty nice to go to sleep to. But, it's going to be 80 degrees year round, so
True.
I might as well enjoy it. So we're going to go over last week's games. Arkansas beat Pine Bluff 45-3. We're not going to talk about that game, but it was an ultimate slump buster for the Razorbacks, and they're kind of back on track. Next up, we will start out with Ole Miss. Beat LSU. Actually, just dominated LSU. 31-17. LSU with 10 garbage points, but 31 unanswered by Ole Miss. It was 270 yards rushing. Matt Corral didn't have to perform, and the defense was stellar.
Yeah, they were. That was a very impressive game from Ole Miss for the reasons you just laid out. So it started out, and you thought, okay, maybe LSU has some sort of, they're digging deep for Coach O here because they got out to that early lead. But then they ran out of steam pretty quick. It was obvious that Ole Miss had seen the tape from the Florida game. They knew how to stop LSU's offense, and they did a great job, obviously, of limiting their run game, stopping that counter play. And then they did a great job of putting that spy on Max Johnson. So he just didn't have a ton of room. Anytime he would try to get out of the pocket, I believe is it Chance Campbell? Is that the
Yeah,
linebacker?
number 44.
Yeah. Yeah, he was just giving Johnson fits all day anytime he tried to escape the pocket. So I thought they had a great plan defensively. And then offensively, like you said, Corral didn't really have to do a ton. So it's one of those things where you hear that good teams can win games in multiple ways, right? Well, we're seeing that from Ole Miss. They outscored Arkansas 52-51. They went into Tennessee, and Matt Corral ran the ball 30 times for 200 yards. They win. Against LSU, Matt Corral runs the ball a lot less, doesn't even throw for that many yards, but they hand it off to Ely and Connor, and they run all over LSU. So just a really good win for Ole Miss. Obviously, a great atmosphere with Eli and the whole Manning crew in there to celebrate his jersey retirement. So that was a great game for them, and I was honestly envious of those fans on TV because it looked like a picturesque day in Oxford.
Yeah, they were having a lot of fun. And another thing to know is in that game, Matt Corral was probably 50 or 60% health wise. And so he needs to get healthy before Auburn because Auburn is a lot better than LSU. And he is going to be needed this week. Mississippi State took a 45-6 win over Vanderbilt. Now, everybody takes wins over Vanderbilt. It's just a matter of how you do it. But the Bulldogs did a very pretty pedestrian game, just kind of went through the motions and just completely blew them out in Nashville. Of course, it looked like a high school attendance at that point. Not a Texas high school, a normal high school.
Yeah, yeah, good caveat there. Um, but yeah, I mean, good win for Mississippi State. I don't really know what to think of this team, or I'm having a hard time figuring them out because I think last week I did not think they would cover. Obviously, they covered that and way more. So it's one of those things where Vanderbilt's not good, and I guess they were coming off a pretty tough last minute loss to South Carolina. Mississippi State was just a better team. They got off the mat and went out there and really dominated. I mean, the offense was was clicking. I think Rogers threw a couple picks, but other than that, it was almost like Vanderbilt had no chance to stop them. The air raid was uh, looking good. So maybe I think that's kind of what Mississippi State is. They're a solid team. They'll beat up on a team like Vanderbilt, and then they'll get whooped by a team like Bama, and then any team somewhere in the middle they'll be right with, whether that's A&M or whoever else is on the rest of their schedule. They'll have a fighting chance.
Yeah. Okay. On Thanksgiving, Ole Miss plays Mississippi State in the annual Egg Bowl. The week before, Ole Miss plays Vanderbilt. Mississippi State plays Tennessee State. Which has the tougher game?
I mean, you got to say probably Mississippi State at this point. I mean,
Hmm.
Vanderbilt. I know it wasn't Tennessee State; it was East Tennessee State, but they've already lost to an in-state FCS school. So I'm assuming they've got the tougher matchup, or Mississippi
Yeah.
State, that is.
Yeah, it's kind of nuts to think about, but I would rather play Vanderbilt 5 days before the Egg Bowl than Tennessee State. It's the weirdest thing.
Sure.
Alabama, one touchdown game in the fourth quarter before Alabama pulled away and won 52-24. Bryce Young looked really good. He used his legs. It almost feels like they're just winning because they are supremely talented, not because they're doing anything special.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I totally agree with it that they are supremely talented, and that shows. And they just I don't really know what it is. They just haven't they haven't quite been, I guess, the vintage Alabama team that a lot expected. But we've talked about this. I mean,
Mhm.
they're they lost so much, not just players, but like first round picks. I mean, that's hard to replace. So although they're struggling more than maybe is normal, at the end of the day, they're still winning these games. I think in this game, especially, I mean, again, like you said, when you look at the stats, it's not like Alabama played poorly. I guess if you have any gripe with them, it's probably defensively. There was definitely a few blown coverages, as there were against A&M. So that's something they have to get cleaned up. But offensively, they moved the ball. Bryce Young played well, and they just wore Tennessee down. I mean, they dominated time of possession. And Tennessee, that style of offense they run obviously is not geared towards possessing the ball very well. And that, I think, came back to bite them because, it just seemed like Bama had the ball all night and Tennessee was playing really well, hanging tough and hitting big plays. But, you could kind of see the writing on the wall that, hey, if Alabama can just wake up defensively and stop giving up these big plays, then they're going to wear them down and pull away, which is exactly what they did.
Yeah, they struggled with second and short all night. If they'd gotten to second and one, they didn't pick up the first down like three straight drives, and that was kind of their undoing. Do you know the 2015 Alabama staff of Nick Saban? You have Nick Saban, Kirby Smart, Lane Kiffin, Mario Cristobal. That's four of the top 10 this year on that one staff. And they also had Billy Napier for good measure.
That's crazy. The,
Yeah.
the, the coaching, the Nick Saban coaching tree, it knows no bounds, especially now that he's basically taking in any and all, coaches that need rehab. And obviously, that was not the case in 2015 with the coaches you just named. But you can look at a coach like Sark, or I
Mhm.
guess even Lane, almost to a certain extent. But he's just his fingerprints are all over the place, and everyone's trying to emulate him, but no one has quite caught up.
Lane probably started the rehab clinic and the reputation. He was probably the first one that came in and started doing that. And then Stark came in and they just built off of that.
Yeah.
So pretty interesting. Now you said you were at the Texas A&M South Carolina game. South Carolina lost 44-14. Texas A&M won 44-14. Didn't mean anything by that. It's just South Carolina was on top of what I was reading. Um, what did you think of that game? What did you notice? South Carolina is not very good.
Yeah, that was one of the bigger takeaways. I mean, we've talked about that a lot this year, where South Carolina, they play hard, they're scrappy, but they just lost a lot off of last year's team, and you're bringing in a whole new coaching staff. They just don't have it. I mean, it was pretty clear early on that A&M was a superior team, especially in the trenches. I mean, A&M defensive line. I felt bad for Zeb Nolan. He was getting whipped all night until they finally pulled the cord and brought in the backup because they couldn't run the ball, and he was getting hit nearly every time he tried to throw. I think they had like 11 or 15 yards or something entering the fourth quarter. I mean, it was comical how little their offense could move the ball. Um, and then offensively for A&M, I think it was just good to see the run game have more success 2 weeks in a row. Again, not a great opponent, but with an A&M offensive line that is still young, and they're really only in their second or third game with kind of the same group. It was encouraging to see the way that they just sort of steamrolled South Carolina. Um, and that's the blueprint moving forward, right? With Calzada, he had another decent kind of game manager performance, nothing special, but he wasn't obviously terrible in the game. He wasn't going to lose it for him. So if A&M can get that confidence and carry that over into obviously the bye week this week and then their stretch of games in November, I think that's big because that's what they're going to need to do to win. I think what we saw from Calzada against Bama was incredibly impressive, but so far that's the outlier. So if they're going to win out or get to 9 wins, they're going to have to run the ball. So that was encouraging to see. But yeah, it was pretty clear that South Carolina just didn't have much of anything, and we'll see what they do the rest of the year. But that a pretty demoralizing loss, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move on to this week, the Week 9 preview. We'll start out with a friends and family only game. Vanderbilt plays Missouri on the SEC network at 3 o'clock. It's opposite of the cocktail party, so it's even hidden away. It's like in the dark recesses of the SEC is Vandy and Missouri. Missouri is a 16-point road favorite in this game. Missouri has given up 280 yards a game rushing. Now, think about that. Now, whenever we get impressed going back 3 or 4 or 5, 10 years, looking at the best rushing teams, it would be like Navy at 303. But nobody would give up anywhere near that. Missouri has potentially the worst rushing defense I've ever seen. In the A&M game at one point, A&M had like 10 carries for 156 yards. It's just terrible. And they're 16-point favorites over Vanderbilt. This is one of those games we don't want to tell anybody about. And it might be, if with the attendance in the stadium, one of those if a tree falls in the woods type situation.
Yeah, I think you're right, unfortunately. This is definitely a game, if you are an SEC hater, perhaps, from a different conference, you will point at and laugh and say that the SEC is not as good as everyone says because these two teams are in it, right? It's going to be a tough game. I think actually, I don't know. It's so hard to predict. I think Missouri will be able to score. That's one thing they do have going for them. Bazelak and Tyler Beatty have been pretty good this year. But yeah, with that run defense, I mean, even Vanderbilt should be able to run on them. Like you said, they have one of the worst run defenses we've ever seen. It looked like a high school game in a lot of the A&M runs where they're just no one's near them, no one looks like they want to tackle. The offensive line is getting a push 4 or 5 yards downfield easy. So I think I'm going to go with Missouri. I don't think I'm going to predict them to cover just because I don't know. Maybe I have too much faith in Clark Lee and Vandy, but I'm hoping that they'll show some fight and run the ball a little bit and keep it out of Mizzou's hands. But I do think Mizzou's just a little bit more talented at the moment, and with Bazelak and Beatty, they should be able to win. But yeah, I won't be tuning into this game much at all. I don't think.
Yeah, the crazy thing is if Missouri wins this game, they're 4-4. In a position to make a bowl game. This would be the game that would take it out of Vanderbilt's hands. This would be their 7th loss.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But other than that game, we have 3 good ones this week. So this is not a Week 9 WEAK. This is a genuine Week 9 situation. The one ranked matchup, Ole Miss is on the Plains at Auburn. That's number 10 Ole Miss at number 18 Auburn. 6-1 versus 5-2. Honestly, this should be the CBS game, but the cocktail party's always going to win out. And then Auburn's favored by 3. It's on ESPN. It's a primetime game. I would be genuinely worried about the atmosphere, but just 2 weeks ago, They went through that mess at Tennessee. So they've seen this before. They've handled this before. I guess the wild card is Bo Nix. I don't know. I don't really get a read on this game. I do know that they look a lot like LSU and run a lot of the same stuff as LSU, and Ole Miss just shut down LSU defensively. So I don't know.
Yeah, this one's tough. Definitely the game of the weekend, as you mentioned, with the condition that Florida's in going into the cocktail party. Um, I really, yeah, I don't know what I think about this game. One question I do have is, is Sanders, Braylon Sanders, will he be back? Do we have any info on that? I haven't seen anything.
They're extremely tight-lipped on injuries, but I imagine Braylon Sanders is going to be back, and we don't know when because they're going to keep it tight-lipped. And anybody that gives you anything definite about injuries, they're lying to you. But either this weekend, next weekend, or for the A&M game, Jonathan Mingo should be back.
Okay. Because I think that will be will have a big impact in this game. I mean, when you look at what Ole Miss was doing earlier in the year when they did have their full repertoire of weapons, it was a little bit different. And we just praised them, or I was just praising them for how they're winning games in different ways, which is impressive. However, it also just shows that they don't quite have the outside threat, really, I think, that Lane would like. And so they're having to get creative and move the ball in different ways. Um, I think I'm going to go with Auburn in this game, basically just because it's at home and crazy things happen at Jordan Hare. Um, it sort of sets up well for them coming off of a bye. Ole Miss is coming off a pretty tough stretch against Arkansas, then Tennessee, then LSU, and then now they have to go to Jordan Hare. So it's just a tough game. I hate to bet against Matt Corral based on how he's been playing because so far he's just put the team on his back and carried them um, through every game. And I think when it really comes down to it, the thing that I'm worried about is the Auburn running backs, whether that's Bigsby. We'll see how healthy he is, but Jarquez Hunter and Sean Shivers have been pretty good as well, even in pass catching. So I think if you're Auburn, you're going to have to try to run the ball. I think they'll be able to at least a little better than LSU. And then I think you're going to have to get creative and try to get them the ball out of the backfield. And then honestly, Bo Nix, we'll see what he can do with his feet in a game like this. Again, he's always a wild card. It's at home. I think he'll play pretty well, and I could see him using his feet a little bit more than he has been. So I'm going to go with Auburn. I don't feel great about it, but I think I'm going to go with Auburn to win a very, very close game. Really, really a coin flip.
Yeah, and if Ole Miss could somehow find a way to get this, this is the last game in the regular season Ole Miss leaves the state of Mississippi. So all of November will be in the state of Mississippi. The only other road game is the Egg Bowl. They have a 3-game homestand after this.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a huge game for Ole Miss, especially again, I know Bama's schedule from here on out, other than against Auburn, is not. There's not a lot of big games, but they've shown some vulnerability. So if they could lose, Ole Miss is obviously right in position to potentially go to Atlanta. So a huge game for Ole Miss.
Yeah. Yeah. And we'll go down the road a little bit in Starkville. They're facing the number 12 Kentucky Wildcats. This is a weird thing. Kentucky's only favored by 1.5. They completely dominated the game last year with like multiple pick six returns and a safety, I think, was in there. I mean, the defense outscored Mississippi State's offense in that game. But they're only a point and a half favorite on the road. It's on the SEC network, 7 o'clock. Cole Kublik, Jordan Rogers, and the boys there. The over/under is 47. I just don't know. I'm not a believer in Will Levis, but I am a believer in Wan'Dale Robinson, and I think he's going to be able to get a couple in this game.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good game too. I am a little bit surprised, like you said, that Kentucky is not favored by more when you just look at the matchup on paper, right? You got a one-loss team, number 12 in the country, against an unranked Mississippi State team. But when I saw the line, I just kind of thought to myself, maybe Vegas knows something here, and so I think I'm going to go with Mississippi State. When you look at it, they both got whooped by the sort of king of their division in the conference with Mississippi State against Bama, and then Georgia against Kentucky. And Starkville at night, kind of similar to Jordan Hare, some weird things happen. The cowbells will be rocking. They're going to be, they're going to be pumped up, even though it was just against Vanderbilt off of a big win. And I think Mississippi State gets it done. I like the way Will Rogers is playing the Cowboy, and I think their offense is just it's again, we talked about it all year. It's not necessarily big play or anything, but they almost possess the ball just through those quick digs and crossing routes and short passing games. So I think I'm gonna go with Mississippi State, and again, Will Levis on the road. I'm not that comfortable picking. Mississippi State has a pretty decent defense against the run, so maybe they'll be able to bottle up Chris Rodriguez. I think that's the key. If Rodriguez can get out and break 100 yards, 150 yards, then I would lean Kentucky. But if they can just work to stop him and force Levis to beat him downfield, then I like their chances. So I'm going to go with Mississippi State, but pretty similar to my Auburn pick. I don't really feel great about it. This one, again, to me is pretty close to a coin flip.
Yeah, this is what kind of separates this weekend from last weekend is the coin flip aspect of these games. And we go to the last game, which is not a coin flip at all. Absolutely not a coin flip at all. It's the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. I hope I got that right, Corey. Georgia, number one in the country. Florida got beat by LSU. LSU ran one play over and over and over again and set the rushing record against Todd Grantham, in which has to be his last game or his last season as a defensive coordinator. That had to be it. It felt like it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, it was a little surprising, honestly, that Mullen stuck with him through this year. I know they go back a long way, so he didn't want to fire his buddy, but he's got to go, I'm sure, after this year, just for Mullen to kind of get the heat off himself a little bit and pass the blame over. But yeah, this one, I mean, even before you talk about who we think's going to win, which I'm sure we're on the same page with Georgia, but just the quarterback controversies on both sides, right? I'm not sure what Kirby's going to do. Haven't been able to get a read on that. I wouldn't be shocked if we see both quarterbacks play here. I'm sure, hopefully at some point JT will be healthy. It seems like he's probably getting there. So how much does he use him against Florida? I don't really think they will necessarily need to use him. I think Stetson could go out there and win this game pretty easy, especially the way he's been playing. And then on the other side, Dan Mullen, of course, which I totally understandable that he's being, tight-lipped about who's going to start. He doesn't want to give Georgia any heads up. He wants to make them prepare for both. But it's got to be Anthony Richardson. I mean, I don't know how you could trot Emory Jones out again. So I'm just excited to see what Richardson can do. I mean, he's been hyped up a lot. He's shown some flashes of greatness, but he's about to go up against the best defense in the country and the best defense, frankly, we've seen in many, many years. So you talk about a tough test for your first start. It'll be interesting to see how he handles that. When it comes to the actual game, like I said, I think Georgia will win pretty comfortably. I just don't see Florida, especially defensively, being able to do enough to slow them down. Offensively, I'm kind of torn. Based on what we've seen from Florida, I'm not convinced they have a great offense, but Mullen does have a knack for dialing up, some good game plans, especially in big games. Now, he certainly has been under fire this year, and rightfully so. But when it comes to games like this, I do think he'll have a good game plan. They're coming off of the bye week, so I could see them putting up a little bit more points than we've seen on Georgia, maybe get to 21, 24. But I do not see them winning this game. I think it's, a 38-24 type of game.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. Georgia is a 14-point favorite. The over-under is 51, so maybe a 38-24 type game is what they're calling for, or somewhere around there. So it should be pretty interesting to see. Now, I do expect Georgia to do well. And I do want to point out, they could win this game with Stetson Bennett. They absolutely could win this game with Stetson Bennett.
Yeah.
But this season is about winning the game starting in December. And I don't know if you can win those games with Stetson Bennett, so you might as well get JT ready to go.
Yeah, I'm with you. Well, we've talked about it all year, right? I mean, you're going to need to be able to stretch the field and make NFL throws come playoff time. Stetson Bennett has been very good. He's capable. Again, he can win this game probably pretty easily by throwing the ball maybe 15 times like he has been. But I think when you look further ahead and you look at a potential matchup with Alabama or a potential matchup with, Ohio State or whoever in the playoff, you're going to want to be able to score quickly and you're going to want to be able to push the ball downfield. Now, it's great to run the ball 50 times a game and throw it 15. But, I'm just not sure that wins at the highest level anymore. So, yeah, I think JT's got to play here. And again, if he doesn't play here, then it's sort of like, when's he going to? Because if he doesn't have the reps come late November in Atlanta and whatever they do in the playoffs, then I don't know how you turn to him. So at some point, he's got to make the move. And if he doesn't, then it's clear he's just going to roll with Stetson, which, Kirby's track record of quarterback decisions is not great. And I know Georgia fans aren't too happy about some of his past ones. So hopefully he makes the right call here. And then we'll see JT a little bit this weekend. If not, just get the start outright and play the game.
Yeah, whenever, for clean old fashioned hate, whenever they play Georgia Tech, JT has to get most of the reps in that game. If he's not getting most of the reps by that game, it might be too late. Now, they might win with Stetson Bennett. They might be good enough defensively that Stetson Bennett can win the games. But the whole point of this season, we were told all off season what a special offense this could have been, and it just hasn't materialized.
Yeah, exactly. It's like we said, it's a fine offense. They're putting up points. It's just not. It's not what you expect from an elite team at this day and age. So we'll see what they do. But you're right. If anyone can win with this style of offense and with Stetson at quarterback, it's this Georgia team because that defense is just not giving an inch to anyone. And I really don't know who's going to get one on them.
Yeah, it's pretty special. Thank you, Hammer, for stopping by. This has been Biscuits and SEC Week 9 preview. They come by every week. They'll be back next week to talk about Hugh Freeze and Liberty coming to Oxford. And there might be some other games going on as well. But we'll talk about that.
I forgot about that game.
Yeah. Believe me, we haven't. We've been
sure.
Yeah, it's absolutely. They get beat by Louisiana Monroe as a 30-point favorite, and we're supposed to be scared. Hugh Freeze is coming like he's the boogeyman. It's absolutely crazy. Anyway, thank you very much, Amber, for stopping by. We'll see you next week, and hotty toddy, and I guess gig 'em for you, right?
Yes, sir. Giga Maggies. Thank you, Stephen.
All right, bud.